welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every recipient of the Medal of Honor. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrose, and I have one announcement and one birthday to cover before getting into today's episode, which is episode number 321. First up, a birthday, which was on Friday, July 3rd, 1934. Robert J. Modrzejewski turned 85 years old. He is a retired colonel from the Vietnam War, and he turned 85 years old, so a very happy belated birthday to Robert. I won't say his last name again since I've probably butchered it enough times. I did cover his story a little over a year ago on episode number 204. I will put a link to his episode in the show notes, so go ahead and check out that episode. Also, if you need something to watch, I do highly and strongly recommend that you check out the movie The Outpost. It came out on Friday, and it is the story of the Battle of Kamdesh, where Clint Romeshay and Ty Carter received the Medal of Honor for their actions during that battle. And the movie is fantastic. I had the opportunity to watch it, and fantastic. If you have not had the opportunity to also read the book Red Platoon by Clint, I do also recommend that. Since I do not read, I listened to it on Audible, and it's a very good listen as well. But the movie was fantastic. I will more than likely watch it again. So please take an opportunity, and you can rent it or buy it. But do watch that movie. It is a fantastic movie. I do believe Logan Stark with Black Rebel Coffee on their podcast, Free Range American, did interview Scott Eastwood regarding the movie, and so that's a good listen as well if you want to go over and check that out. I will put links to all of that in the show notes, so do me a favor, go check out all of that. But that's all I have for today. A little longer episode from the Civil War is going to be today, number 321, so let's jump right onto it. Andy was born on the 30th of January, 1845, in Northampton, Pennsylvania, and grew up in nearby Easton, and his father was a distiller. He had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and by the time he was 15, he and the family had moved to New Cumberland, Virginia, where his father had become a miller. 2 years later, at the age of 17, Andy joined the Union Army and was assigned to Company I of the 12th West Virginia Infantry. He participated in 12 different battles between June of 1863 and April of 1865, but it was his actions on the 2nd of April, 1865, during the Third Battle of Petersburg that would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry as color bearer in assault on Fort Gregg." Andy had seen that his regiment's battle flag had fallen, so he grabbed it, knowing that 3 had been killed carrying it that day. He later described that during most of the assault, which took about 6 hours, there was no time to reload muskets, so the majority relied on the use of their bayonets for the rest of the battle. Andy went on to participate in 2 more battles, in which his regiment took to pursuing troops commanded by General Robert E. Lee, and ultimately the surrender at Appomattox on the 9th of April, 1865. Andy was one of 40 men that received orders to board a steamboat in May, while the rest of their regiment rested after the war, and they escorted a load of boxes to Washington, D.C. They were originally told that these boxes contained guns, but were later revealed to contain the battle flags taken from Confederate forces. Andy was part of the detail that delivered those boxes to the White House and to Edwin Stanton, the Secretary of War. These 40 men were given 2 months' pay and 30 days of furlough with transportation home. Once Andy returned to Richmond, he was presented his Medal of Honor on the 12th of May, 1865, and a little over a month later, on the 16th of June, he was honorably discharged. He returned to Pennsylvania and then moved to Illinois in 1868, where he worked as a hotel bartender in Elgin. Andy married Mary Pabst, his boss's daughter, on the 2nd of November, 1869, and they had 6 children. He went on to become a fireman and then became the assistant fire marshal, followed by the fire marshal of Eglin, on the 14th of May, 1889. In an interview that Andy gave in 1890 about receiving the Medal of Honor, he described traveling to Washington, D.C. with, quote, shoes that would have disgraced an ash barrel, end quote, and going on to write about his leave and pinning. I enjoyed every one of the 30 days, and I went back to the front believing that I had been amply awarded for all that had been done in the assault on Fort Gregg, but the full payment for that day's work had not been made. We went into camp like schoolboys who had earned an unexpected holiday, and without the slightest idea that anything more was to follow, the whole corps was drawn up in a hollow square at their camp in Richmond, and the name of each member of the furloughed party was called in turn. As we stepped forward, General Ord's daughter came up and pinned a Congressional Medal of Honor on the breast of each one, and for the first time we understood that the country had decorated us with the highest possible gift as a reward for bravery. It is not necessary to speak of the pride I felt at being singled out from so many brave fellows. If I had earned it unwittingly, it was none the less precious, and I value it more highly than words can tell. Andrew O. Apple died on the 7th of June, 1890, from complications of Bright's disease, a chronic inflammation of the kidneys. He was 45 years old, and following an escort by fire department and other city officials, he was buried in the Bluff City Cemetery in Eglin, Illinois, Section 4, Lot 166. His wife would join him 38 years later. And that was a tale of honor. Thank you for listening to Tales of Honor Podcast. Head on over to talesofhonorpodcast.com where you can read these stories, see other ways to support the show, and easily share a story with your friends and family. Tales of Honor Podcast is written and produced by Christoph Ambrosch, and theme song, A New Beginning, is by Ben Sound. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrosch. Thanks for listening.